From the child of sky blood to the hammer that strikes fate. When Odin sowed his seed upon Midgard, he was not merely creating warriors. He was planting fragments of divine power into the soil, so that when winter stretched endless and the Jotnar rose from the frost, there would be one who could stand amid the snow and blood without a tremor in his hand. Thor was the fusion of sky and earth, born of Odin, king of the gods, and Fjordin, goddess of the soil, carrying in his veins both divine might and primal instinct. From his earliest days, Thor was no ordinary child. He was fierce, quick-tempered, and hard to rein in, but also loyal, forthright, and unshakably brave. No one taught Thor to be a hero. He became one because he could not stand to see evil trample the weak. When the gods faltered before the frost giants, the Jotnar, who threatened the realms, Thor did not wait for orders. He seized his hammer, leapt onto his chariot drawn by the divine goats Tangrisnir and Tangjostr, and charged headlong into the blizzard. But it was not his rage that defined him. It was Mjölnir, the hammer forged by the dwarven brothers Sindri and Brakr. More than a weapon, it was a symbol of balance and protection. Mjölnir could shatter mountains and summon thunder, yet it could also bless marriages, consecrate births, and guard the world from chaos. Thor and Mjölnir were not god and tool. They were one entity, where strength and duty were bound as tightly as steel and lightning. The early days of Thor were a relentless march of victories. He did not count the battles won, nor the foes slain. He fought not to be king, but because no one else could hold the line. As a young man, he tore down the giant fortresses of Jotunheim, scattered thousand-year storms, and with every swing of his hammer, the 9 realms shook, as if the thunder itself roared from his heart. Yet Thor was no bloodthirsty brute. Behind those storm-gray eyes was a loneliness even Odin could not soothe. He was the son whose wit his father never valued, the brother forever compared to Loki's cunning and Baldur's beauty. Thor had only muscle and willpower, and the world demanded he bear its weight with nothing else. Still, he never complained. He knew that if he fell, Asgard would have no one left strong enough to rise. Thor, the warrior never born to rule, but destined to be the wall that shields the gods from the storm. The legendary battles of Thor. A true deed is more than a victory. It is the scar left behind by a wrath that never fades. The battle with Hrungnir, the arrogant stone giant. Hrungnir was no ordinary giant. Called the mightiest of all Jotnar, his body was stone, his head was stone, and even his heart was a cold, lifeless slab. But what made him dangerous was not his strength, it was his arrogance. He dared to sit and drink with Odin in Valhalla itself, boasting that he would slaughter the gods, take Freya as his wife, and make Freyr his slave. None could bear the insult. Yet by divine law, Odin could not kill one he had welcomed into his hall. And so he called for Thor. Thor said nothing. He arrived with eyes like twin storms, Mjölnir clenched in his fist. Hrungnir laughed. I will grind you into dust. The two met on the field of Grjotunngard, the earth splitting beneath their steps. Hrungnir hurled his massive whetstone, the only weapon that could match Mjölnir, but Thor's hammer flew first. The clash burst with the brilliance of lightning at midday. Mjölnir shattered the whetstone, smashed through Hrungnir's skull, and the giant fell like a collapsing mountain. In his fall, Hrungnir's leg pinned Thor to the ground. The god could not rise, until Magni, Thor's son, barely 3 years old, arrived and lifted the giant's leg as if it were a twig. Thor gifted him Hrungnir's steed, Gulfaxi, and rumors began to spread. If Thor's children are like this, perhaps Ragnarok will never come. But Thor did not smile, for he knew each great victory only brought the end closer. The wedding disguise, reclaiming Mjölnir. This was not a battle of strength, but of humiliation, and Thor never forgot that day. One morning, Thor awoke to find Mjölnir gone. No trace, no witness. Without it, Asgard stood vulnerable. Loki, with his cunning, discovered the truth. Thrym, king of the Jotnar, had stolen it and hidden it deep beneath the earth. His demand was simple. Give me Freya's hand, and I will return the hammer. Freya shattered her necklace, Brisingamen, in fury. Thor slammed the table. Odin was silent. Then Heimdall, guardian of Bifrost, smirked. Why not let Thor play the bride? The gods roared with laughter. Thor's face burned red, but he nodded. If this will return my hammer, I will wear the dress. So Thor donned a bridal gown, veil, and jewels, while Loki, dressed as a handmaiden, escorted him to Jotunheim. Thrym was overjoyed. The wedding feast began. Thor devoured an entire ox, 8 salmon, and 3 casks of ale. Thrym frowned. Freya eats as if she has been starving. Loki replied smoothly. She has fasted 8 nights for love of you. When Thrym tried to kiss the bride, he saw eyes blazing like thunder. Why are Freya's eyes so red? Loki answered. She has not slept for longing. At last, Thrym brought out Mjölnir to bless the marriage. His final mistake. Thor tore off the veil, seized the hammer, and slaughtered the entire wedding party. Jotunheim ran red with blood, and Asgard's balance was restored. From that day, no one dared speak of Thor in a dress. Except Loki, who still laughed to himself. The first meeting with Jörmungandr, the world serpent. It happened when Thor borrowed a boat from the giant Hymir to go fishing. Hymir sneered, thinking the thunder god just a boy playing at men's work. Thor said nothing. He simply ripped the head off an ox for bait. They rowed far into the open sea. So far there was no sky, only wind, water, and silent thunder. Thor cast the line. The bait sank. The ocean stilled. Then, a pull so immense it seemed to lift the world itself. Thor's grip tightened, veins rising in his arm as he hauled the thing from the deep. The waves heaved, and then he saw it. Jörmungandr, the serpent so vast it could coil around the entire world, rising from the abyss. Venom dripped from its fangs, its eyes locked with Thor's, and in that moment, 2 primordial enemies recognized each other. Thor raised Mjölnir, ready to strike the first blow of the world's end, but Hymir, terrified, cut the line. Jörmungandr plunged back into the depths, thrashing so violently that tsunamis struck Midgard. Thor roared in fury, but it was too late. From that day, Thor knew, one day, they would meet again. And on that day, both would die. Thor does not fight for glory. Each battle is a marker, a vow. As long as he still draws breath, this world will not be swallowed whole. The tragedy of the Thunderbringer. Thor had long grown used to the sound of thunder making his enemies tremble. But not every tragedy comes from the battlefield. There were days when Thor looked to the sky, hammer in hand, yet could do nothing to change what was coming. The death of Baldur, when strength meant nothing. Baldur, Thor's half-brother, was beloved by all, the light of Asgard, the very symbol of purity. When prophecy foretold Baldur's death, their mother, the goddess Frigg, traveled across the realms, asking all things to swear never to harm him. But she overlooked the mistletoe, and Loki, ever the crack in fate's foundation, seized the chance. He shaped a slender spear from mistletoe and placed it in the hand of Hödur, Baldur's blind brother, guiding him to throw it. Before all of Asgard, Baldur fell. Loki's laughter rang out like a blade twisting in Thor's heart. For the first time, Thor could not stop death, even as he stood within arm's reach. He shattered everything around him, but he could not shatter destiny. Holding Baldur's lifeless body, he felt the cold seep into his own heart. From that day, Thor understood. Some losses can never be avenged, no matter how many battles are won. The fire of temper, when power becomes a burden. Thor was always the first to strike, before an enemy could even finish a sentence. For centuries, it brought him victory. But as Ragnarok drew near, that same fury led to mistakes that cost Asgard dearly. Once, during a border skirmish between gods and giants, Thor, blinded by rage, struck down a prisoner who could have been the key to brokering peace. His act sparked a war that raged for days, claiming hundreds of lives. He never forgave himself. Thor knew he was born to fight, but fighting is not always the same as winning. His wrath, once his greatest strength, had become a double-edged blade. The prophecy of Ragnarok, shadow over Asgard's peak. No god escapes prophecy, and for Thor, his was merciless. The Valva seers spoke plainly. When the Midgard Serpent rises from the sea, when the sky burns with the flames of Muspelheim, you, Thor, will kill it. But you will take only 9 steps before falling to its venom. It meant that all his might, all his victories, all the storms he summoned would lead only to a certain death. Thor did not fear dying. What he feared was what would happen after he fell, that Asgard would be left without its wall against the chaos. From that day, Thor fought not just to win, but to buy time before fate arrived. Every swing of Mjölnir against his enemies was also a blow against the ticking clock of his own destiny. Thor, the mightiest god of thunder, was, in the end, still just a son carrying the weight of his father's legacy, the burden of an entire realm, and the prophecy that everything he fought to protect would fall with him. Ragnarok, the final thunder. The skies above Asgard burned crimson. Bifrost, the great rainbow bridge, shattered into shards of light, falling into the void. From the north, the Jotnar surged like a blizzard stained in blood. From the south, Surtur's flames devoured all they touched. And from the black depths of the sea, Jörmungandr, the world's serpent, rose, its colossal body coiling around Midgard, making the oceans roar. Thor stood in the heart of chaos, Mjölnir clenched in his hand. He saw every sign of the prophecy unfold, the earth and sky trembling, the stars gone, the winds heavy with the scent of blood and ash. There was no retreat, no bargaining, only the battle he had been born to end. The final clash with Jörmungandr. Jörmungandr's roar split the heavens. Every lash of its tail birthed tidal waves that swallowed warriors and monsters alike. Thor leapt into his chariot, drawn by Tangrisnir and Tangjostr, lightning bursting in his wake. Each swing of Mjölnir carved bolts of pure electricity across the storm-filled sky. He struck like a thunderbolt, plunging into the sea. Mjölnir smashed against the serpent's iron scales, shattering them like mountain stone. Venom sprayed from its fangs, boiling the ocean where it fell. Thor was hurled into the waves, but he rose again, blood mingling with seawater, his eyes locked on the enemy. They clashed in the storm of the world's end. Every blow from Thor shook Midgard to its core. Every coil from Jörmungandr threatened to drag all into the deep. At last, Thor gathered every shred of his might into a single throw, one he knew would be his last. The hammer pierced the serpent's skull, silencing its venomous breath. Jörmungandr let out one final roar before collapsing, its massive form curling in upon itself, sinking into the black abyss. 9 steps before the fall, Thor stood amidst the stillness, sea and sky holding their breath. But the venom was already in his veins, burning like molten fire. He began to walk, 1 step at a time, counting without thought. 1, 2, 3, the ground trembled. 4, 5, 6, thunder rumbled from his heart. 7, 8, 9. Thor dropped to his knees. Mjölnir slipped from his grasp, embedding itself in the earth. His eyes turned toward Asgard, where warriors still fought, where the home he had guarded all his life now burned. He smiled, not the smile of victory, but of a man who had fulfilled his duty, knowing the cost. Then Thor fell, like a pillar of the sky breaking in two. The thunder ceased, the legacy of a god. When Ragnarok was over, when a new world rose from the ashes, Thor was remembered not merely as the strongest, but as the final wall between life and chaos. They said that without those 9 steps, Midgard would never have survived to be reborn. Mjölnir was lost, but the thunder remained, etched into the memory of all creation. And when storms rage, some believe it is Thor, though fallen, still standing watch, ready to strike down any who threaten the balance of the world. Thor died, but his thunder lives forever. The children of Thor and the legacy they carried. Magni, strength beyond his years. Magni was the son of Thor and the giantess Jörmungandr. From the moment he could walk, his strength was nothing short of legendary. At only 3 years old, he accomplished a feat that even the mightiest warriors could not. When Thor slew the stone giant Hrungnir, the giant's corpse crashed down, pinning the god of thunder beneath its massive weight. Not even the other gods could lift it. But Magni stepped forward, grasped the giant's leg, and raised it as if it were a mere branch, freeing his father. After Ragnarok, when Thor fell, Magni and his brother Modi were among the few who survived. Legend says Magni would inherit Mjölnir itself, taking up his father's mantle as protector of mankind and the gods who remained. Modi, unyielding courage. Modi, his name meaning wrath or courage, was also the son of Thor and Jörmungandr. Myth does not record many of his deeds before Ragnarok, but his very name speaks for him. Fearless, indomitable, unshaken even in the face of doom. In many versions of the myth, Modi and Magni both survive the end of the world. They are not merely survivors. They are the ones who shoulder the burden of rebuilding order, carrying both the strength and the warrior's spirit they inherited from their father into a new age. Thrud, RR, the proud shield maiden. Thrud was the daughter of Thor and Sif, his true wife. Her name meant strength or power. While not often chronicled in battle, some accounts speak of her as a Valkyrie, a warrior maiden serving Odin, tasked with choosing which fallen heroes would enter Valhalla. One tale tells of the dwarf Alvis, the all-wise, who sought Thrud's hand in marriage. Thor, unwilling to give her away, challenged Alvis to answer an endless string of questions about the world, drawing the contest out until dawn. When the first sunlight touched Alvis, he turned to stone, freeing Thrud and forever adding to her legend as a woman of strength and wisdom. After Ragnarok, the new world. When the world was reborn from ash, Magni and Modi became young warriors charged with guarding humanity and the surviving gods. Their possession of Mjölnir, the hammer of Thor, was more than an inheritance. It was a symbol. The power and will of the thunder god would live on through them. As for Thrud, in some versions she remained a Valkyrie, a living emblem of loyalty, strength, and the fierce pride of women who stand unbroken at the edge of the world. The final song of the thunder god. On the desolate fields of Ragnarok, the stench of blood, smoke, and ash mingled into a dark crimson fog. At the heart of the battlefield lay Thor, his eyes closed. Mjölnir slipped from his grasp, yet his body remained like a statue of thunder, as if ready to rise again at any moment. The roar of Jörmungandr was gone. The crash of the hammer upon enemies had fallen silent. Only the cold wind whispered through the dents of his armor. Magni and Modi approached. They did not weep. They knelt beside their father, placing their hands upon Mjölnir. The hammer was still warm, not from fire, but from the lingering pulse of Thor's power. Together, they lifted it. Lightning burst forth once more, illuminating the young warriors' faces. In that light, they were no longer merely Thor's sons. They were the living legacy of the god of thunder. Magni looked to the sky, where the black clouds had parted and the first light of dawn broke through. His voice thundered across the vast silence. Father kept his promise. Now it's our turn. Modi placed his hand over the hammer, swearing his vow. From this day, as long as thunder rolls, this world will remain protected. And so they walked away, carrying Mjölnir, not to seek glory, but to guard all that their father had given everything to protect. Somewhere, between the wind and the falling rain, a rumble of thunder could still be heard, not heralding a storm, but as the greeting of Thor, the god who had fallen, yet never truly vanished.